بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to send countless blessings and salutations on our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his pure family, his honorable companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. I remind myself and I remind you with having the sincere intention that everything that we are doing, whether it is a solely religious endeavor, meaning in forms of ibadat, acts of worship, or it is a social endeavor where we're working to better our communities, which falls under our religious principles as well, that with all these things, we intend to draw close to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala by them, to seek the reward of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala by them, and to earn the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. But there are issues that I think as Muslims, historically, especially in America, we have ignored, and they keep repeating themselves to us. So I was thinking, after many conversations yesterday, that we have responsibilities. And sometimes we have a tendency, because dealing with pain and dealing with struggle sometimes takes a lot out of us. We always try to find a way to escape that pain, you know? So when we have some pain, many times people rush to painkillers. Painkillers is not removing the problem of the pain, it's just covering the pain. But if you just take painkillers and you don't deal with the issue that's causing the pain, that's going to never change. The painkiller is just numbing the pain. It's not solving the sickness or whatever the disease or the illness that's causing the pain. And I think for Muslims in America, African American Muslims, we have a lot of pain, just as African American people have a lot of pain. And sometimes dealing with that pain in and of itself is painful. And we try often to escape it. And the more we do that, later on we find out that because we never resolve the issue, that pain comes back again. So we're in a state now that our pain is on display in front of the whole world. And it reached such a point that no one can ignore it. And as a Muslim person who is from the African American community, I feel a responsibility, just as a Muslim who's African American. I feel a responsibility to take my part in curing the illness that is causing us so much pain. if I want to add to that, as a leader of a group of African American Muslims, as well as I'm the Imam of other Muslims from other ethnicities, but specifically the pain that we're talking about is the pain of African American people, and African American Muslims are counted among those people. So I feel a sense of responsibility towards removing and curing that illness that is causing the pain for all of us. Because the fact that we said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that in and of itself has not cured the diseases that are causing the pain for our people. In fact, I would venture to say, in some ways, saying that added more pain to our suffering because of how we approach that kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And yesterday, I had many conversations with imams and in the African American community. And one of the things that I noticed, and I want us to stop, and I want all of us to play a role in stopping us from doing it. What am I talking about? It's this idea among African American Muslims that we need to apologize to someone else because we're dealing with our pain and we're dealing with the illness that was unleashed upon us that got us feeling this pain, and we would discuss it. We're made to feel guilty for even discussing it. This is something we got to change. Seriously. When someone is sick, when someone is suffering, when someone has hurt themselves or someone else has hurt them and they go to a doctor, the doctor says, describe to me your pain. Let me know where your pain is, how you're suffering, so I can heal you. Bi'idhnillah. This is how you take care of pain, how you take care of sickness, how you take care of trauma. You don't ignore it and you don't say, don't talk about it. But when it comes to the history of the struggle of African Americans or Black people, descendants of slaves, whatever title you want to use, because that can be a distraction too. Don't call me Black. Don't call me African American. Don't call me Nubian. Don't call me Balalian. Whatever you choose to identify, you know the exact people we're talking about. Right? Whatever title you want to use for it. These people that are of our skin tone and the various shades of that skin tone who are defined as African American or Black or Negro or whatever title they want to give, you know who I'm talking about. Please don't use titles to forget what we're talking about. We know clearly who we're talking about. Whatever name they want to choose to use, we know who we're talking about. Let's concentrate on that. So, with this issue, every time we talk, I would hear one of our imams or one of our sheikhs say, but I want to make sure that they don't misunderstand me. They have totally misunderstand you. That's why you keep feeling the pain you feeling. Because either it's two things. They totally misunderstand you or they don't care. And believe me, I'm leaning to the latter more than the former. And that is something that they have to deal with. But us, we can't worry about that. We have to cure and fix our own situations. And we have to use Islam to do it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, Inna deena inda Allahi al-Islam, that the way of life, the religion that is acceptable to Allah is Islam. So that is the methodology that we got to follow. Allah said, وَمَن يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَن يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. That whoever chooses, desires a way of life of an Islam, it will never be accepted, and he will be a loser in the hereafter. So we got Islam. So Islam has to be our route to fix whatever ailments that are in the society, whatever things that we're faced with. We have to learn to use Islam to do it. So if that's the case, then that is our route to salvation. Then we need to ensure that Islam is serving the purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it as a deen through the tongue of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for us to fix their society. We must use Islam properly. And that's why I emphasize all the time that we have to learn our deen independently of everyone else. What do I mean by that? Because I'm not going to allow anyone to play the race card on us when they are using the race card against us. And this needs to be talked about. And I don't think at this moment there is a subject that is more important for our immediate reality than this subject. Because it is because that we don't deal with this subject that it keeps happening over and over again. You know? And we always trying to find a way not to deal with these issues. Let's run away from them. And we shouldn't. We shouldn't run away from these issues. We must deal with them. And if all of us on the ground, in the grassroots, teachers, students, imams, members of Masjid, all of us start dealing with this issue and calling a spade, we can fix it. We can fix it. So when I'm talking about us, I want us to start to study our history within Islam, because this is our route. And in Islam, we'll notice that all of our movements were destroyed. They were undermined. They were overtaken. And it's some serious issues. And that's why for generations, we haven't been able to, as a community, build and pass on our legacy. After every charismatic leader, every well-known imam, after he passes, the community finds themselves set back. And then we got to ask ourselves, why is that? While other communities keep advancing. And I personally believe that the reason that happens is because we are constantly trying to show others that we accept them, while others constantly show us that they don't accept us, and we end up, as a result, not accepting ourselves. And I think that's a problem. If you study the history of Islam, from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to our day, you'll notice wherever Islam went in a society, among the people, those people still maintained who they were. They just changed their aqidah, their belief, they changed their religious practice. But as for who they were as a people, their customs, their habits, that remained the same. The only thing that left was any custom that contradicted the sacred law. And they produced their own scholars, their own leaders, their own teachers, built their own schools, built their own institutions, and that has maintained from the time they embraced Islam to today. Example, the first place outside the Arabian Peninsula that Islam reached was Abyssinia, Al-Habasha, Ethiopia. From the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Muslims went to Ethiopia under the leader of Sayyidina Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, to this day in Ethiopia, you will find the leadership in Ethiopia is black. The schools in Ethiopia are controlled by black people. The scholars of Ethiopia are black people. But it was the Arabs who came to Ethiopia and taught them about Islam. Predominantly, most of the immigrants were Arabs. They embraced Islam. The king and Najashi embraced Islam. And even when the people from Habasha came to Medina, they was doing their own cultural dances. And the Prophet ﷺ didn't stop them. They maintained who they were, even within Islam. And this is true. Go to when Islam entered every land, even out to Russia, to China, to wherever you go around the world, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, who are not Arab people. If you go to Russia right now, Russians, they run their country. Their schools are ran by their teachers. They build their own institutions. They have their own government. And when they come there, even the Arabs go there with respect. And I put that video up yesterday of that conference in Chechnya so that you could see, like, these were ran by people from Russia area. Chechnya, these were European Muslims who were in charge, had schools, built one of the biggest masjids in the world, and they maintained their culture, and they have their own scholarship, and they're doing the work, and they're respected on the international level, to the point that they can bring 200 scholars or more from all over the world under their leadership. You go to Africa, go to Nigeria, go to Senegal, go to all of those countries in West Africa, and you will see the leadership is African. From that country, the scholars, that's where it is. Go to China, the same thing. Go to India, the same thing. India, they got Islam, they established their schools, they got their Darul Ulooms, it's filled with their people, with their scholars, and nobody blinks an eye. Wherever they go, the people say, okay, mashallah, here come the Indian scholars, here come the African scholars, and they have a seat at the table. Why is it when it comes to us, there's no seat at the table? Why, when it comes to us, if we want to build, we got to explain ourselves? That is not because of anything except that we allow it. And we need to understand that if we keep doing the same thing, history will determine our future, which will be the same thing for our children. And what I'm saying to you, of the group of people we have here, we have to start combining our resources. We have to stop the idea of individualism. Because as an individual, none of us is going to be able to pass on a legacy to our people. We're not going to be able to do it. We're going to have to join forces. We're going to have to take our resources. We're going to have to take our talents, and we're going to have to put them in one pot, and we have to build. It's extremely important. So I'm mentioning these things because I want us to develop something that can be passed on for generations. That's important. So if we don't do that and we don't work with the people we got, what is the future look like for the African American community? And I'm going to give you, inshallah, I want to dialogue with you. So I want all of y'all who have an interest to put your concerns in the chat box, because I want to document some of these things. And over the next coming weeks and months, I want to go around the country with all the different imams in our community and sheikhs and the women, as women teachers and scholars. I want to bring them all together, and we want to start having real conversations that how we can build our communities. We want to learn from the history of those who were successful. And we want to learn from the mistakes of those who made mistakes. And we want to set a platform that can be used as a model to build communities that are successful and that can have a support system for future generations, both economic, religious, spiritual, educational. We need to pass on a legacy. So when I talk about history, I'm looking at things that have been for the benefit that we can duplicate. And I'm looking at things that have been harmful that we need to avoid. So yesterday, when I talked about the danger that Wahhabism has posed to the African American community, I'm looking at it from a historical point. And I've watched how that type of understanding of Islam hasn't served us well. Despite it hasn't served the Muslim Ummah well. And that's a lesson from history. And to watch how it developed and how the enemies of Islam used it to destroy Islam from within. That's a history lesson. That's learning from history. And if you don't learn from history, history will repeat itself. And this is real. So, inshallah, I'm going to pause for a second and see if any of you have some comments about these issues that we talked about last night that I'm talking about now. So, inshallah, we can have some interactive dialogue. Because I believe some of you people who attend, you have a lot of input and you don't get the chance to have your voices or your questions or your comments heard, and I would like to talk about them, inshallah ta'ala. Let me go down. Nope. There's a 20-second delay, so maybe that's the cause of some of our me not getting the questions fast enough or the statements. Now, and this is Brother Abdul Wali Hassan. My concern is us selling out our own people for the amenities of this world. Let's disconnect the hearts from the dunya so dunya can't be used as a bone. Well, when we talked about Islam, we talked about it in three ways, right? We talked about the primary sciences, and we talk about the sciences of Islam. You have the science of al-Aqidah, which deals with our belief system, right? And all this relates to disconnecting to the dunya. So then we talked about the science of al-fiqh, and then we talked about the science of at-tasawwuf or Sufism. From the side of at-tasawwuf, there is an aspect called al-qana'a, contentment, right? And there is another concept called az-zuhud, right? Which is renunciation from the world. The world has a purpose. So Islam doesn't tell us don't deal with the world. We're put on the earth to maintain the world, right? We have imaratul ard. We have to take care and develop the earth. That's part of our job as khulafa al-ard, as vicegerents on the earth. However, what we got to learn, and this we'll learn inside of Sufism, is to not be attached to the world. In other words, have the world in your hand, not in your heart. And when I say the world, I mean the things of the world. And you use those things to move you to the akhirah. And you use only what is necessary. So that's where you come al-qana'ah. That's where you come with contentment. You lose what is necessary to get you to the goal, which is to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So there is a balance. Islam doesn't tell you don't deal with the world, don't interact in the world, just go in the masjid or your homes and make dhikr. La. You have to engage in the world. You have to maintain the world. You have to take care of the world. You have to do all of those things. And in al-fiqh, we got rules in al-fiqh that relates to how to engage in the world. That is mu'amalat. That is dealings and transactions. And that's a part of our religion. But what Sufism balance that is to say, while you engaging in the world, don't forget your journey is to the hereafter. So once you have that, then you'll never sell out for money. And you won't feel the need to sell out to money because from the side of Aqidah, you know that Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Allah is the one who provides, not the creation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already determined your risk. What are you going to be provided with in the world? So there's no need to rely on someone else to alter your practices for depending on someone else to give you wealth or to empower you, because al-quwwa, al-tawfiq, power, strength, success comes from Allah. Wallahu a'lam. And this is just getting into that. And that's something we're going to have a deeper discussion on, inshallah. Let me move back up. Allah. Okay. How to maintain consistent support of our imams. This is a very important issue. And yesterday, last night, which was, we thank you all, really, you made the gathering, the first Black Imams Roundtable, very successful. Supporting the Imam is an important aspect. But before you can support an Imam, you have to have an Imam, right? And I want to talk about leadership. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam always made a leader. That was his habit. Whenever he sent his companions out, he would establish an emir, a one who would lead that group, right? And even if it was 2 or 3, it was the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make someone a leader. And that leader would talk with the others, have consultation with the others, but that leader would make the ultimate decisions as to what they should do. One of the things that is hurting the Black community is a lack of respect for leadership. And I believe a lot of that is based on the affliction of the traces of Wahhabism in our communities. But that's another discussion. We can have it. Because what do I mean by that? Wahhabism has given every layman the idea that I don't need no one else. If I read Quran and Sunnah on my own, I can do what I want. Add that to the American mindset of doing whatever you want anyway, just do it. When you put those two things together, you got a recipe for disaster. And that has never been the Islamic traditional way of doing things. Muslims have always followed imams. Muslims have always followed leadership. Muslims have always been in communities. And it wasn't to the last 200 years where we saw the community being destroyed by way of everyone follows the law the way they interpret it and do whatever they want based on their understanding of Quran and Sunnah. This is one of the big problems. So I'm just, and I say that because I believe that those ideologies are the most dangerous things affecting Islam and the Muslims. One of my teachers, he wrote a book and he said about it that the most dangerous innovation threatening the sacred law of Islam is Allah madhabiyya, right? Not following leadership, not following a school of thought, which is following an imam, which is following scholars, which is staying within a structure. That is the most dangerous innovation threatening Islamic law. And one of the great scholars of Egypt, Sheikh Muhammad Zaid al-Kawthari, he said this concept of not following a madhab, not following leadership, not following scholarship is a bridge to not having a religion at all. That was his opinion, and that they wrote about this issue. So in terms of having an imam, that's why you notice all the imams agree you must have an imam. You must have somebody you listen to, somebody you follow. It is necessary for the development of a community. So first, before you can support an imam, you need to get one. And I'm not telling you who that imam needs to be, but everybody needs to be under the leadership of an imam. All of us, right? And that means they're going to be leaders and they're going to be followers. And leaders got to be good leaders and followers got to be good followers. And part of being a good leader is building and developing the community. And part of it being a good follower is supporting the leader in developing and building that community. But what we have in our communities, and this is a big problem, whenever I don't like the imam, I take my ball and I run. There's never going to be imam on the face of the earth that you're not going to like. Every imam, you're going to find something in him that you dislike. The Prophet ﷺ said that. They said, you're going to find, Rasulullah ﷺ, he said, you're going to find in your leaders things that you will dislike. And they said to the Prophet ﷺ, should we fight them, ya Rasulullah ﷺ? He said, no, so long as they establish the prayer. And this is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that you can't just be rebels. That's what destroyed our community in the early days. People rebelling against the leader. They didn't like Uthman, they killed him. They didn't like Ali, they fought him. They didn't like the way he was doing things. And we keep repeating that. We don't like the way the leader do something, we rebel. There's a whole section in books of fiqh called Bab al-Bugha, the section of rebels, just about this issue. Islam demands that we have leadership and we have loyalty to that leadership. And when our leadership makes mistakes, we advise them, we talk to them, but we don't rebel against leadership. That's not Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And when we get to the end of At-Tahawiyah, Imam At-Tahawi is going to mention this point about sticking to the Imam, whether he's righteous or corrupt, because in sticking to the Imam, it preserves the community. So long as he's not contradicting the sacred law and encouraging people to contradict the sacred law, we got to hear and obey. That's an important aspect. So that's one aspect. Once you have that in place, then supporting the Imam is easy because you realize that the Imam, his job is to educate and to develop the community. And in the Black community, the job of an Imam is a full-time job. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If you don't believe me, ask any wife of an Imam in the Black community, and that wife will tell you the same thing. He's always talking about the community. Any Imam, I'm not just talking about myself. Any Imam in the Black community, by the nature of it, has to give his all to the community. And all you're going to do is talk to his wife and ask him how much time does he spend trying to help and build and maintain the community. And that wife will tell you probably 85 to 90% of his time. If she says he don't do nothing else, he don't even take care of me because he's taking care of the mosque. That's any black imam. I know black imams who lost their house trying to maintain the masjid. I know black imams who take their money from their jobs to pay for the masjid because the people don't support enough. And I know a lot of black imams like that. So supporting the imam is not just supporting the imam. It is supporting yourself and building your community. Because if he's financially stable, he can do more work. He can do a better quality of work if you support him. But the other thing, forget the person, the station of imam, the position of imam needs to be maintained so that our children will aspire to it. If the imam is always broke, always struggling, and our young boys see that, they have no desire to be an imam. And therefore, you're destroying leadership. You're destroying future leadership, because who's going to want to be poor? Who's going to want to have their lights out? Who's going to always worrying about how they're going to get money? The kids see that. They see how you treat the imam. I'll give you what a kid did to me one time. Young kid in the masjid. He just got a job working at a fast food place. I think he was 16, 17 years old. He got his check, and this kid was in the masjid regularly. He came to me after Juma with $100 bill. I said, "What's this for?" He said, "I want to help you." I said, "Man, put that money and go get you something to save it." He said, "No, you don't get enough help and support. And I want to make sure you're supported so you can continue to help us." And he said, "Please take my $100. Don't turn me down." He was like 16 or 17 years. Just get his job. And he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about the community. This was a young kid, 16, 17, but he was in the masjid, and he saw that importance. So for the imam, don't think about the imam that's in the position. There's going to be another imam. There's going to be somebody after him. Think about maintaining the status of leadership and make it a status of dignity so that future generations will strive for it. Not just to be the imam, but to know that if I go to serve my community, it's not a financial death sentence for me, because my people got my back. And you'll see much more out of the imam if you supported him. So that's one way. Support the imam. Do what Brother Abdul Wali mentioned. Lessen your dunya, and then take an extra portion and give to the masjid. Support the masjid. The masjid will be able to take care of the imam. In every immigrant community, just to give you by example, the average salary in the immigrant communities is around $75,000 a year with benefits and housing. The average salary for the African-American imam is a stipend between $500 and $1,000 a month. Compare. A stipend, no housing, no benefits, no nothing. Here's $100, $200 for giving Jumu'ah, and the rest is fi sabilillah. And they wonder why our imams burn out. So, but the other thing is related to education in our communities and careers, because our people don't earn a lot of money. So we got to work on the education and the skills and the training and entrepreneurship, so our communities are communities that have wealth. That's another story. And I'm just giving you ideas, and these things, I'm going to hold your questions. And when we have these panels of imams, we're going to have our sisters talking, and we're going to throw these questions and let others answer as well. So when we say crabs in the barrel exists in the Black community, and it's also in our masjid, and it needs to be addressed and removed. That's a matter of the heart. And that's a matter we do got to work on, which is purifying our hearts. And part of that is a concept in Islam called al-ithar. Al-ithar, what does that mean? It means preferring others over yourself. And that's a very important aspect in Islam, that you're more concerned with the success of others than yourself, right? You want for the others good, just like you want for yourself. And that's a matter of the heart, where your heart feels that way. And we got to see each other's success as our success, right? So when I see you successful, I see in that success a success for all of us, right? And that's a heart level thing. So if we want to remove that crab in the barrel, crab in the basket mentality, we have to have pure hearts and love for one another. And we have to develop that. And Shaitan is going to come to each and every one of us and give us a reason not to love the other. And that's something we just got to work on. But in Tasawwuf, you'll learn that. In Sufism, you're going to learn that you have to have a preference of others over yourself. You have to see that no one is worse than you. You are not better than nobody. And everyone has characteristics that you need to adopt to raise your state. So once we have these concepts and we work as a community to overcome these things, we can get rid of it. But if we realize it, right, and we don't actively engage in reforming ourselves and working with the others, we separate, we don't cooperate with one another, we're not patient with one another, we're not forbearing with one another, we'll never do it. So even when we're the victims of people pulling us down, we got to have a little bit of forbearance, right? I mean, we all feel that in our own way, that people are just making it rough for us to go ahead. And we feel that. But we got to realize that we all play a role in our own diseases. So we all got to do our part to fix it. One of the ways, prefer others over yourself. If everyone work on that concept, I'm going to prefer the other over myself, right? And I'm going to work on myself to think good of others, which sometimes is difficult. But all of these things will help remove that. Because if you get a spirit of everybody who's cooperating with one another, everyone who's looking for everyone's success, then you can remove that. Even if there are some that have that position, after a while, they're going to remove themselves because it's not going to be tolerated in the group. Wallahu a'lam. A strong infrastructure is when we're all a group. Allah said in the Quran, وَاتَّصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So the question was, how do we develop a strong infrastructure? And how do we maintain it? We stick together. We have to have this concept, I am my brother and my sister's keeper. No one's going to separate me from the community. If you have a body of people, even if they're a small group and they stick together and no one can separate them, they'll make a strong infrastructure. Strong infrastructure becomes when people come together, they are like-minded, they have the same commitment, they have the same ideology, they have the same objectives and goals, and then they work together, they plan, they execute, they're inseparable, and that's how you make a strong structure. I know that at Masjid Muhammad, I'm going to speak for Masjid Muhammad, we always have been under the gun, right? Always had people who were trying to undermine our success. But because we have a core group of people that no matter what, they stick together, they pull their resources, they work hard, they support the leadership, we always succeed. with the help of Allah. And we constantly grow. We constantly develop because we have a family that is, you can't penetrate it. No matter what you do, we're going to stick together. And I can say about our community, and it's one of the fortunes that I'm happy about, they support their Imam. And they will circle the wagon around me and protect me from all enemies, what they said, foreign and domestic. No, really. I see a lot of Imams who don't got the support that I have. In my community, the people at Masjid Muhammad, they're going to protect the Imam. They're going to stand with the Imam. And even if they themselves may see something, they're going to say, yo, Imam, this ain't right. But they don't betray the Imam. They stick with him. And that's how, despite people trying to undermine what we're doing, we keep going because we have a core group of people that's a solid infrastructure and you can't penetrate it. May Allah reward them. And I pray that they pass that on for Imams after me when I'm gone. Definitely economic freedom that we must mention and agreed on. We must develop economic freedom. But I want to share something to you. Economic freedom is going to be done when you pull your resources. You're not going to get economic freedom if you don't do investment. So you have to bring your money to invest. You have to bring your ideas to find lawful things that we can invest in to develop our communities. We need entrepreneurship. We need business. We need to do some things that bring us financial independence. And once we have that, then we really don't got to depend on anyone else. We don't got to structure our organizations that someone else is pleased with that might not reflect our desires and objectives and goals. So if we pull our money together, talk with the people who know how to invest and develop money in lawful ways, then we need to do that. And that's how we're going to get financial independence, inshallah. Allah, Allah, Allah. MashaAllah, it was some good comments. This is a good point, that leaving the community when you're not comfortable. And the analogy, I think, is a very good analogy, that most of us are at work in jobs where we're not comfortable, and we don't always quit because we see the necessity of preserving and maintaining our sustenance, and I got to have money, I got to take care of my bills. Well, the masjid got to do the same thing. The community got to do the same thing. So just like you endure discomfort in your workplace sometimes, you should try to endure a little bit of the difficulty in the masjid. Trust me, every imam is uncomfortable in the black community, most of us. We go through stuff all the time. We don't quit. We don't leave. We don't get what we want. The imam do not get what he wants. Trust me. You can talk to any imam. They don't get what they want. It's a struggle, constant, all the time. They're always putting out fires. You know, so everyone got to deal with that. You're gonna face things you don't like. That's part of the community. The Prophet ﷺ faced things he disliked among the community of the Sahaba. It happens. It's part of building. Brother Wali, I know wives who help their husbands maintain the masjid with their own money. Every black wife in the black community with a black imam does that. So all the wives of black imams are forced to do that, whether they want to or not, because they have little resources. So the husband is taking the resources from the house to help the masjid, and the wife is taking her resources to help them. Every wife can tell you that same story. It's not unique to any one masjid. That is the backbone of the black community, the wives and women of the community. That's the backbone of the black community, our women. May Allah reward them and raise their rank. and give them the highest level of Jannah for all their sacrifices. Because our women, not just the wives of the Imam, not just all women, all of them in the Masjid break themselves for the Masjid. May Allah reward them. And may we treat them better, because we ain't that great at that either. Allah. Okay? I'm sorry. It's a lot. Change formula. Charismatic, faithful leadership, group unity, organizational planning based on Quran and Sunnah, domain of interest, the right time to execute. What do you suggest, Imam? Is this plausible for us as a community day? Yes, but you know what I say about that? We need to have our community members who have skills write their skills out, make their suggestions. And here, when you make your suggestion, maybe people may not take everything you're trying to do, but offer it, put it on the table. Let the leadership decide what is best at the time. Don't discourage. If I don't do everything you want, then you ain't gonna do anything. Nah, offer your ideas, put your suggestions. And what suggestions we accept, say Alhamdulillah. What suggestions we don't accept, refine them and figure another way, or just say right now ain't the time. But don't say, if you didn't accept all my suggestions, never mind. Nah, you don't do that. Do what you can, offer your talents, give your suggestions, and let's try to build. So that is important. We might not be able to do all that in one whop, but we can do it over time. But we need to pick the prioritize what we need to do. And priority is going to be the position of the leadership. The leadership is going to have to decide which directions we take. The community cannot impose on the Imam what he got to do. That's why he's the Imam. He has the job to decide what is best for the whole, not for the individual. So always offer your ideas, write out your plans, do it and submit it. And then say, listen, put it on record. We did offer this. And sometimes we may not do something you offer, and we may do another way, and it may be wrong. And then we got to come back and say, you know what? Sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so mentioned this. We should try that. We tried this and it didn't work. Let's go back and try that. I remember one of my sheikhs, he was talking about community building. And he said, each of us need to accept the other's opinion sometimes, even if we think our opinion is better. Let's give the other opinions a try. If it doesn't work, we come back to our original thoughts. But give it a try and be willing to defer to the opinion of others. Give it a try. It may not work. It may work. But if we always only stuck on our ideas and no one else's ideas work or are listened to, that's not a recipe for a growing community. And I give you, most imams, they don't come up with all the ideas. They just look like they're coming up with it. A lot of those ideas is people giving suggestions to the imam and the imam accepts them. But even though, because he do it and you may not know it, you think it was all his ideas. Most of the time it's not the imam's idea. Okay. Yes, tasawwuf, I believe in our community is very important. Very, very important. Spirituality, working on the inner state, removing all the bad characteristics, and adorning ourselves with noble characteristics that is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah is extremely important. I believe that it is through the science of tasawwuf that we're going to rectify our ills of our society that it gave us. All these bad characteristics that we picked up, when we start practicing tasawwuf, we're going to slowly remove them. True tasawwuf I'm talking about. Ghazalian tasawwuf, that tasawwuf of Imam Ghazali, that is practical. practical, what we call at tasawwuf al-amali, that tasawwuf that you can implement, not just theory and spiritual states. Okay. What about central homeschooling for young children? Affordable. That, to me, that is one of the most critical areas that we're suffering in our communities. Education and our own schooling, our own institutions that promote our religious beliefs, our etiquettes, our social construct that we need to educate that from the time of babies. That's one of the most crucial things. Homeschooling, building Islamic schools, to me, that is one of the most important things. Like, that is crucial. Did I pass somebody? So much stuff going on in here. Yes. So please, that is something we need to work in every community. The establishing schools. Imam Mufti Muhammad rahimahullah, he did it with the Sister Clara Muhammad schools and continuing that from what he received from the nation. And when we were educating our own children, they were inclined to continue to work. When we stopped educating our children, they're inclined to go do work for someone else. Homeschooling, building Islamic schools, daycare, all those things, getting the children at their young age, using our resources and our skills to educate our own is of primary importance. We will not be successful without it. So that is, and I'm going to have a whole seminar on that with experts in that field, because we need to talk about that. That is something, please remind me, that is like a priority on the list. We need to learn how to develop homeschooling, education, building schools, institutions, higher institutions of learning in the future. That's extremely important. We love you, Imam Chuck D. Fight the power. MashaAllah. I come from, before me becoming Ahl Sunnah, I grew up in a proud Black community. We had our own schools. We had our own businesses. I don't come from poor Black understanding of culture. I come from a very dignified group of Black people. So, I mean, we had some far out religious concepts, but all these issues we talking about, they were done. Leadership, we had. Economic development, we had. Building schools, we had. Building masajid, we had. Building community, we had. Securing the community, we had. Taking care of our women, we had. Building land, we had. Only thing we was messed up was with wrong belief. Now we got the right belief, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and we don't got none of that stuff we had before. So a part of my job as an imam is to restore that. And I keep all of that stuff from when I was a kid, what we used to do. I'll give you an example myself. When I was a teenager, I used to bring to our community $100 every single day as a teenager. We had, in New York alone, like 300 men that would go out every day, and those men would bring $100 every day back to our community. You talking about $30,000 a day that was coming into that community from Black men in the streets getting it done. We built schools. All of our children spoke and learned Arabic in the schools, but with Black teachers. We built masjids from the ground up. I've seen it. So for me, it's not impossible. I've done it. And I can show you the pictures. And anyone who knows about Brooklyn, New York, and knows about the Ansar community, you might not like the beliefs. You might have said, oh, that was wrong. And I totally agree with you. But don't tell me they didn't build community. They did it. They did it at a level that was miraculous. And we could do the same thing with the truth. We don't deny that they had bad concepts, and so did many others, but they had good concepts. The Nation of Islam did the same thing. Black people used to build. It seems like when we learned the Sunnah, we forgot that exists. And that's a mistake. That is a big mistake. We became servants once we became really under the guise of the Sunnah. When we wasn't, we were men and women and proud people. And we need to return that. We need to return those things with the truth, with Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, with the correct Aqidah, with the correct fiqh, with the correct tasawwuf, but we still need to build our communities. And that's something we got to do. And we can't be afraid to do that. I'm almost done. I'm going to answer a few more and we're out of time. Allah. Okay. Community is common. We got that. I'm going to tell you me, straight up. I am not in favor of board members and all that stuff. I don't agree with it at all. What I'm in favor of is advisory committees to the leadership. People who support the leadership and advise. That concept of board members that we got from the immigrants, that they got from corporate America, doesn't work for the Black community. I don't agree with it. I don't find no basis for it in the Sunnah. I don't find it is what we've noticed that is designed to undermine leadership. So I don't agree with that at all. What we have in our masjid, we have board advisors, advisory committees that suggest to the imam, that talk to the imam, but we have one central leadership. That's my community. That's Masjid Muhammad. We don't have board members who get elected and they come in. Our imam is the imam till he dies, unless he commits some stuff that contradicts all of our Islamic principles. And even if he commit a sin, we're going to advise him, tell him to repent. Only way we'll remove our imam if he keeps being a major sinner and he keeps doing things that's destroying the community. Our leadership has been the same leadership from imam. We only change imams when the imam died. That's how we are. Imam Amin is the imam till he gets sick or till he died. And the next imam before me was the imam till he got sick until he died. The imam before him was in leader until, that's how we keep it. We've had leadership for 30 years. I've been the imam after 30-year leadership for over 10 years. That's our leadership. We maintain leadership. That's extremely important. If you change in every imam because the board don't like someone and the board got some power play and people, that's politics. We're Muslims. We don't do that. And so you do need advisories. No one should be running crazy. So, and the board needs to be people of knowledge. They need to be on the same page as the leadership. So in our community, our board members, our advisory board members, our executive board members who function as advisory to the imam, all of them are Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. All of them follow a madhab. All of them are Ash'ari. All of them are into tasawwuf. We don't have no difference of opinion in these issues. So our religious base is the same. There's no discussion about that. No one is running to elect a new imam. That don't even come up in the subject matter. No one is looking to overthrow the community so I can gain more power. That don't exist. And I would suggest in our communities that we don't allow that to happen. That's not our way. It never been our way. In the history of Islam in the Black community, we don't do that. That's some other stuff. So I wouldn't suggest that. Absolutely not. Now, some people may disagree. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I ain't seen it work for nobody. I go to the immigrant communities, they be changing imams, they be doing politics, and you see it, and they'll tell you it don't work. So, I don't suggest that at all. That's a nightmare. And you may disagree with me, but you show me where it worked, and you show me where it didn't cause a bunch of fitna, then maybe I would take it another way. But from what I've seen, disaster. I've seen it all the time, and I can give you hundreds of examples where boards always undermine leadership, and your leadership becomes ineffective because of the board. So this is something I've seen. I'm totally opposed to that. May Allah help us. Inshallah. So what we're going to be having, I'll just give you some good news. We're going to be having that Imam's roundtable. We're going to be having with different Imams around the country. So it's going to be a regular additional program that we offer at Masjid Muhammad with Imams in our coalition, because we have a group of Imams all around the country, African-American Imams who are dealing with the same issues. So we dialogue and we talk and we share notes and we share best practices. And we, inshallah, we're trying to build where we start supporting our communities. And here, I believe, this is my personal conviction, when the African-American communities become strong, their leadership is strong, they develop financial independence, they develop strong institutions, they will have better reactions with other Muslim ethnicities, other Muslim communities. But you got to go in first. You got to go inward and stop reaching out. You got to go inward, use all your resources, build, develop your communities, and then when you come as an equal, not as an inferior. Because unfortunately, a lot of times we come with our hand out and our head down, and we got to change that. We got to have our hand up top and our heads up. My sheikh, he used to say, MashaAllah, he says, I don't come with my hand up, I always come with my hand down. I mean, I don't come like this, I come with my hand down. I'm giving, I'm not always receiving. And we got to develop in our communities where our communities come as a strong entity, and we don't have to compromise our principles for nobody, because we don't got our hand out. If anything, we're giving. We don't got our hand out. We ain't going to say, we got to do this so you can give me. Nah, we're independent. We don't need you to give us nothing. If you want to support us and help us, mashallah, but we're not begging you for anything. No, we're not going to do that. Right? And that's important. So in order to do that, you got to build strong infrastructure. You got to build a strong economic independence. You got to build strong leadership. You got to build knowledgeable people who know their religion. Right? So nobody can say, we only going to teach you what we want you to have. I don't need you to teach me at all, period. We got our own teachers. We got our own systems. We learn our own books. We got our own connections. We don't need you to get me to the sheikh. I'll get to the sheikh myself. We have our own sheikh. We don't even need your sheikh. And that's not out of arrogance. That's out of independence. And every strong nation can say that. It's only a weak nation that says, I need someone else to lead me. Strong nations lead themselves and cooperate with other strong nations. Let's be a strong nation. Let's build strong communities that we don't depend on nobody. But at the same time, we don't have hostility to nobody. We don't have enmity to no one. But we're not slaves and servants to no one but Allah. And we're not going to do that. And we are capable. We're not stupid. We can build institutions. We have talented people. We got people who got skills just like others got skills. We can build our communities just like they build their communities. And it don't got to be a competition. You do what you need to do. We do what we need to do. We all strong. We build a strong ummah as of worldwide. But if you strong and we weak, we're going to be suppressed and oppressed and treated badly and looked down upon. So we don't blame you for that. We got to build our own, so we come to the table with something and you respect us. So inshallah, may Allah help us continue this work. And tomorrow, remember, tomorrow we're in at Tahawiyah and the Book of Assistance, Saturday and Sunday, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakumullahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. سبحان ربك رب العزة ما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.